Welcome to this deep dive. And today we're going to be exploring the world of fantasy author K.M. McKenzie and her upcoming novel, The Civilization.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, we've got some of her articles and interviews with us today.
Okay.
And she's got some really interesting thoughts about how magic should work in fantasy.
Okay.
For example, she refused to cut a certain phrase from her writing, even after getting feedback on it.
Huh. Interesting. What was it?
It was trying to find the magic in this world.
Yeah.
So why was that phrase so important to her?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, that's exactly what we're going to try to figure out.
It's more than just a fun fantasy phrase, isn't it?
Right.
It kind of gets at something a little deeper about how she sees the world, both the real one and the ones that she creates.
Yeah, you're right. It's like a window into her whole creative process.
Yeah.
And one of the first things that struck me was her analogy of a quilt.
Okay.
She says that every thread, every fantastical element in her stories is crucial to the overall tapestry. You can't just pull one out without unraveling the whole thing.
Yeah.
I think that's a really insightful way to think about world building, even if you're not writing fantasy.
I agree. It speaks to her belief that magic shouldn't just be decorative. It should be integral to the plot, to the characters, driving the story forward.
Yeah.
She even calls fantasy the unofficial other protagonist in her work.
Wow. That's a pretty bold statement.
It is.
But when you think about it, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, in a fantasy world, magic isn't just some, external force.
Right.
It's woven into the very fabric of reality.
Yeah.
It shapes how people think, how they interact with each other, and how they understand their place in the world.
Yeah, definitely.
And getting that right is crucial for making a fantasy world feel real.
Totally.
Have you ever read a book or seen a movie where the magic system just felt tacked on?
Oh, yeah.
Like it didn't really belong?
All the time?
It can really ruin the immersion.
It takes you right out of it.
Yeah, totally.
Like, what am I even watching?
Exactly.
Or reading?
So a well-developed magic system should feel like an organic part of the world.
Absolutely.
With its own rules and consequences.
For sure.
And that's what makes McKenzie's approach so intriguing.
I agree.
She doesn't just create magic systems.
Right.
She creates worlds where magic is a fundamental force.
Yeah, it's part of the world itself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she's not afraid to get personal about where her inspiration comes from. She's talked about always searching for magic in the real world, even admitting to having a daydream disorder.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and she even has this really elaborate vision of living in a Gothic mansion in this fantastical realm called Ebenscape, which is also the name of her website, by the way.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I love that.
It shows how much her imagination just spills over into every aspect of her life.
Yeah, it really does.
And I think these personal anecdotes are really important because they show us that even the most fantastical stories are often rooted in very real human experiences.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like she's taking these everyday emotions, like longing, wonder, a desire for something more, and channeling them into her writing.
Yeah, that's what makes storytelling so powerful, isn't it?
Right.
It allows us to connect with something larger than ourselves.
Right.
To explore different ways of seeing the world.
Yeah.
And to find meaning in the seemingly mundane,
I like that.
Beautiful thing.
Okay, so we've talked about McKenzie's belief that magic should be integral to the story.
Yeah.
And how her own search for magic informs her writing.
Yeah.
But now I'm curious about how she actually goes about building these magical worlds.
Well, here's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
She has this really unique approach.
Okay.
Where she takes familiar rules and then subverts them, twists them, reorders them.
Okay.
She's not trying to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
She's taking something familiar and making it her own.
Do you think that's why her work feels so fresh and original?
Definitely.
Like you can see the influences, but it's still something completely new?
Mm-hmm. It's like she takes the DNA and rewrites it.
Yeah.
A little bit.
I like that.
Just enough to make it different.
Yeah.
And she uses George R.R. Martin as an example.
Okay.
You know how he took traditional names and then combined them to create those really unique and memorable names?
Yeah.
For his characters in Game of Thrones?
Yeah, Alicent.
Yeah.
It seems like a combination of Millicent and Alicent.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a subtle detail,
yeah,
but it adds this layer of depth and history to his world.
Exactly. It makes you feel like you've stepped into a real place where things have history.
And McKenzie uses similar techniques in her world building.
Exactly.
She's not afraid to draw inspiration from existing conventions.
Yeah.
But she always puts her own spin on things.
Her own little twist.
Right.
It's a technique any writer can learn from, really.
Yeah.
You don't have to come up with something completely new from scratch.
Right.
You can build on what's already there and make it your own.
I think that's a great takeaway for anyone listening who's interested in writing or storytelling.
Yeah, for sure.
Sometimes the most creative solutions come from taking something familiar and looking at it from a different angle.
Totally.
But let's go back to Mackenzie's world for a second.
Okay.
You mentioned that she twists and reorders familiar rules.
Yeah.
Can you give us a specific example of what that looks like in her work?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Let's take the concept of trees, for example.
Okay.
In most fantasy worlds, trees are just trees, right?
Yeah. They might be ancient and wise.
Yeah.
But they're essentially passive elements of the landscape.
Yeah, just kind of there.
Right.
But in Mackenzie's world, trees are teeming with life. She talks about sapient microspecies living in their roots.
Oh, wow.
Communicating with each other.
Okay.
And even influencing the tree's behavior.
Wait, so the trees can think and act on their own?
Exactly. That's wild.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it goes beyond just trees.
She talks about wind that carries songs and whispers stories.
Okay.
A dawn prince who literally ushers in daylight. And a sunset that acts as a gateway to the realm of the gods.
Okay.
She takes these elemental forces that we all know.
Right.
And gives them agency, purpose, a sense of wonder.
It's like she's breathing magic into the very air her characters breathe.
Totally.
It's not just a backdrop.
Right.
It's an active participant in the story.
Exactly. And this brings us back to that key phrase we mentioned earlier. Trying to find the magic in this world.
Right.
It's not just a quest for her characters.
Yeah.
It's a challenge to the reader to see the world through a new lens.
I love that it's like she's inviting us to look for the magic in our own lives.
For sure.
Even in the most ordinary things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we've got this incredible world where magic is woven into every element.
Yeah.
From the trees to the wind.
It's everywhere.
But how does that actually play out in the story? Okay.
For example, she mentions that the wind carries songs and stories.
Right.
Connecting different parts of the world.
Yeah.
It's not just there to be pretty.
Right.
It plays a role in how information travels and how events unfold. That kind of detail makes you really feel like you're stepping into a living, breathing world.
It reminds me of how some cultures believe that the wind carries the voices of their ancestors.
Oh, yeah.
You know, she's taking those kinds of beliefs and weaving them into her world in a way that feels both familiar and completely new.
Exactly. And it's not just about aesthetics or creating a sense of wonder.
Right.
These magical elements also have practical functions within her world.
Okay.
Remember how McKenzie talked about the Dawn Prince?
Yeah.
Well, in her world, the sun doesn't just rise on its own. It's actively ushered in by this powerful being.
Oh.
And the sunset, it's not just a beautiful sight, it's a literal gateway to the realm of the gods.
So it's like she's saying that even the most mundane aspects of our world,
right,
like sunrise and sunset, could have a deeper, more magical meaning if we just knew how to see it.
Exactly. And think about the implications for storytelling.
Okay.
Imagine a scene where a character needs to deliver an urgent message across a vast distance. Instead of relying on a tired old trope like a magical courier, McKenzie could use the wind, weaving the message into its songs and letting it carry the words to their destination.
Yeah.
It's fresh, it's creative, and it's deeply rooted in the logic of her world.
That's such a great example. It really highlights how she takes these fantastical elements and uses them to drive the plot forward in a way that feels both organic and surprising.
Yeah.
But I'm also curious about how these wonders connect to the characters.
Yeah.
Does she use them to reveal something about the characters' personalities or motivations?
Absolutely. Remember how McKenzie mentioned that one of her characters, Grandpa Adoje, is on a quest to find the magic in this world.
Right.
Well, that quest isn't just about discovering fantastical creatures or hidden realms. It's about rediscovering a sense of wonder and awe that he's lost over the years.
It makes me think about how we often lose that childlike sense of wonder as we get older.
Oh, for sure.
We get so caught up in the routines and responsibilities of adult life that we forget to look for the magic in the everyday.
And that's where Mackenzie's world building really shines.
Yeah.
She's creating a world that invites us to rediscover that wonder.
Yeah.
To see the extraordinary in the ordinary.
Yeah.
It's like she's saying, hey, what if the trees could talk?
Right.
What if the wind could sing? What if the sunset was a portal to another dimension?
Right. And suddenly the world becomes a much more exciting and mysterious place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But she also contrasts Adoje with his granddaughter, Kadza, who hasn't seen these wonders firsthand.
Yeah. What do you think she's trying to say with that dynamic?
It's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
I think it highlights the importance of perspective and the power of storytelling.
Okay.
Idoje, who's seen these wonders, represents the wisdom and experience that comes with age.
Yeah.
But Katsa, with her fresh eyes and open mind, reminds us of the importance of approaching the world with a sense of curiosity and wonder.
And think about how that dynamic plays out in real life.
Yeah.
We often learn about the world through stories,
Right.
whether it's from our grandparents, teachers, or the books we read. Those stories shape our understanding of what's possible and what's not.
Exactly. And McKenzie is using that same dynamic in her writing.
Okay.
Idoji's stories of fantastical creatures and breathtaking landscapes ignite Katsa's imagination and inspire her to see the world differently.
Yeah.
It's like she's saying that storytelling has the power to bridge the gap between generations and cultures to share experiences and perspectives that would otherwise be lost.
It makes me think about how important it is to share our own stories.
Yeah,
To pass down the wisdom and wonder we've accumulated over the years.
for sure.
We might think our stories are ordinary, but they could spark someone else's imagination and change the way they see the world.
And that's what makes Mackenzie's work so compelling.
Right.
She's not just creating a world filled with magic and wonder.
Right.
She's inviting us to participate in that wonder, to discover it for ourselves.
You know, it's interesting that you mentioned participation because I was just thinking about how she emphasizes that nothing in her world exists just to be there. Everything has a purpose.
Yeah.
Everything is connected.
Right.
Do you think that's a reflection of her own worldview, or is it more of a storytelling technique?
I think it's both on a storytelling level.
Okay.
It's a way of creating a world that feels believable and immersive.
Yeah.
If every element has a purpose, it makes the world feel more real, more thought out.
Yeah, it's like in a good mystery novel, every detail, no matter how small,
Right.
might turn out to be a clue.
Exactly.
It keeps you engaged and makes you pay attention.
Right. But I also think it reflects a deeper philosophical idea that McKenzie might be exploring in her work.
Okay.
This idea that everything is connected, that even the smallest actions can have ripple effects, is
Yeah.
a common theme in many spiritual and philosophical traditions.
It makes you think about how we often underestimate the impact of our own actions.
Oh, yeah.
We might think we're just going about our daily lives.
Right.
But everything we do, every choice we make, has the potential to create change in the world around us.
And that's a powerful message, especially in a world that can often feel chaotic and unpredictable.
Right.
Mackenzie's work offers a sense of order and purpose, a reminder that even in the midst of chaos, there's a deeper meaning to be found.
But it's not a simplistic or naive view of the world, is it?
No.
I mean, her world is filled with conflict and danger.
Oh, for sure.
It's not all sunshine and rainbows.
Not at all, and that's what makes her work so engaging.
Yeah.
She's not afraid to explore the darker aspects of human nature, the challenges and struggles that we all face,
Right.
but she does so in a way that always points back to that underlying sense of hope and wonder.
I think that's a really important balance to strike, especially in fantasy.
Definitely.
It's easy to get carried away with creating epic battles and fantastical creatures.
Right.
But if you lose sight of the human element, the story can feel hollow.
Exactly. And Mackenzie never loses sight of that human element.
Right.
Her characters are complex and flawed.
Yeah.
They make mistakes.
Yeah.
And they face real consequences for their actions. But they're also driven by a desire to make the world a better place to find the magic in the midst of darkness.
And I think that's something we can all relate to, whether we're fantasy fans or not.
Yeah.
We all want to believe that there's something more to life, that even in the darkest of times, there's still beauty and wonder to be found.
And that's the power of Mackenzie's storytelling.
Right.
She's not just entertaining us, she's inviting us to re-examine our own beliefs,
Yeah.
to see the world with fresh eyes, and to rediscover the magic that exists within us and all around us.
So we've talked about the wonders McKenzie has created,
Yeah.
how they function in her world, and how they connect to the characters and themes of her story.
Right.
What I'm really curious about now is how McKenzie uses these elements to actually tell a story.
Okay.
What are some of the narrative techniques she uses to bring this magical world to life? Narrative.
You're absolutely right. And that's where Mackenzie's skill as a storyteller really shines.
Yeah.
She understands that world building is just the foundation, you know?
Yeah.
The real magic happens when you start populating that world with characters we care about and putting them through challenges that force them to grow and change.
So it's not just about describing fantastical landscapes and creatures.
Right.
It's about using those elements to create a story that resonates with readers on an emotional level.
Precisely.
Basic.
It's not just about telling us that the wind carries songs. It's about making us feel the emotional impact of that phenomenon.
That's a great example. It's like she's inviting us to step into the story and experience it alongside her characters.
Exactly.
It's not just about reading words on a page. It's about feeling the wind on our skin, hearing the songs in the air, and smelling the scent of magic in the forest.
Exactly. And she does this with all of her fantastical elements.
Okay.
She doesn't just tell us about the trees with sapient microspecies. She shows us how those trees communicate with each other, how they react to danger, and how they play a role in the lives of the people who live among them.
It makes me think about how we often take the natural world for granted.
Oh, for sure.
We see trees as just trees, wind as just wind.
Right.
But Mackenzie's writing reminds us that there's so much more to it than that.
Yeah.
There's a whole world of wonder and mystery hiding in plain sight if we just open our eyes and pay attention.
And that's the real magic of fantasy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It allows us to see the world with fresh eyes, to rediscover a sense of awe and wonder that we may have lost somewhere along the way.
You know, it's interesting that you mentioned awe because Mackenzie talks about how important it is to evoke that feeling in her readers.
Oh, okay.
She says that she wants her stories to make people feel small in the face of something vast and unknowable.
I think that's a really insightful point. In a world that's increasingly focused on the individual, fantasy offers us a chance to reconnect with something larger than ourselves.
Yeah.
It reminds us that we're part of something bigger, something ancient and mysterious.
It's like when you stand on the edge of a vast ocean or gaze up at a star-filled sky.
Yeah.
You feel a sense of humility, a sense of wonder that puts your own problems into perspective.
Exactly. And Mackenzie's writing evokes that same feeling. Her worlds are vast and intricate, filled with wonders that are both beautiful and terrifying.
Right.
She's not afraid to show us the power and the majesty of the natural world, and in doing so, she reminds us of our own place within it.
But it's not just about creating a sense of awe, is it?
Right.
There's also an element of mystery and suspense in her work.
Yeah, for sure.
She doesn't reveal everything at once. She keeps us guessing, leaving us wanting more.
Absolutely. And that's another key aspect of her narrative technique.
Okay.
She understands that a good story needs to have a sense of mystery, a sense of the unknown. She doesn't spoon-feed us information. She lets us discover it for ourselves piece by piece, just like her characters do.
And that makes the reading experience so much more engaging, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, totally.
You're not just passively absorbing information.
You're right.
You're actively trying to piece together the puzzle, trying to figure out what's going to happen next.
It's like she's inviting us to go on an adventure with her characters.
Right.
We're not just reading about their journey, we're experiencing it alongside them, feeling their fear, their excitement, and their sense of wonder.
You know, it's amazing how much thought she puts into every aspect of her storytelling.
Yeah.
From the world building to the characters to the narrative techniques she uses to bring it all to life.
It's really impressive.
It's clear that she's not just trying to write a good story. She's trying to create an experience, a world that readers can get lost in and feel a part of.
I completely agree, and that's what makes her work so special.
Yeah.
It's not just entertainment, it's an invitation to explore, to imagine, and to rediscover the magic that exists within us all.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into K.M. Mackenzie's world, I can't help but feel inspired.
Yeah, me too.
She's shown us that even in a world that can often feel mundane and predictable, there's still room for wonder, for magic, for stories that transport us to other realms and make us believe in the impossible.
And she's reminded us that each of us has the power to create that magic, whether it's through our own writing, our art, or simply by choosing to see the world with a little more curiosity and a little more awe.
So what seemingly ordinary things in your life could be seen as magical or extraordinary if you looked at them from a different perspective? That's something to think about as we say goodbye for now until next time. Keep exploring, keep imagining, and keep searching for the magic in your own world.